Hi, thank you. I'm not gonna enlighten you, but I'll promise I'll make it quick. And sorry for reading. I usually give talks about clouds and computing and Kubernetes. By the way, I embedded the smallest Kubernetes logo out there. If you can find it, I'll give you some prize. But I wanted to talk about something different, right? So cloud, that's what you think when I say cloud, right? So big piece of metal, data center. We're gonna take back the term today and we're gonna talk about something else, so another kind of cloud. So this is the world we live in, the world we created, and it's all about productivity and getting this done and social media. We are homo economicus, right? So we multitask, we have this 24/7 hamster wheel of work, and we associate ethos with work, and we associate busyness with business. But we sacrifice too much to these ideas, to this ethos, right? So in 2014, I watched a TED Talk from this guy, Gavin, I never remember the name, Gavin Pretor-Pinney. In 2014, he wrote a book about cloud gazing, and he founded the Cloud Appreciation Society, which I promptly joined. And it's a society that doesn't do much, but it's a bunch of people that like to look at clouds and share photos and just enjoy being there and just enjoy sharing these amazing things that are all around us, and they are integral part of the circle of life of this planet. See how big they are. They can span the entire planet, basically. They are hundreds of kilometers. They fly at hundreds of kilometers an hour. They are big piece of water and ice. They form when water flows upwards because it gets warmed by the Earth, and coalesce around condensation nuclei when the temperature drops below the dew temperature, right? So they are really part of, and there are so many of them. There are so many different kind of clouds. Most of the names are from Latin. You may remember some from a Latin talk from a few years ago. They can be menacing, right? They can be scary. But what you think is scary for a farmer, for example, it's welcome, right? So this means that the crop will grow and they're gonna survive one more year, right? So clouds are not there because of us. They just transcend human nature and human intent. So they are not evil. They don't spoil your day because they are bad. They just happen to be, right? So that's profound meaning in that. So question, who knows what this is? This is a bad cloud. This unfortunately is the mushroom cloud of the Hiroshima bomb. So not all clouds are good. Who can recognize this one? Wins a t-shirt. Yes, right. So this is Matrix Revolution. So we scorch the sky and we cover with cloud because the bad AI. This is a very special cloud. Who knows what this is? No, this was shot on Mars by Curiosity rover. So clouds are not only specific to our planet, they can exist. It's an alien cloud, right? So cloud also spark our imagination, right? So I see here UFO, right? So flying saw. So it also sparks our capacity to imagine and to see things, to see patterns. Is our innate ability. So Dutch have a special relationship with clouds, with nature in general. They harvest their energy and their immense power for electricity or for irrigation. And who doesn't know this? So the Dutch says also, after the volcans came to the zone, and after every cloud there is a rainbow. So the topic of the talk is, you look at cloud and you start to enjoy life. You start to enjoy your role, your place in the planet. So it's in praise of laziness. And dolce far niente means sweet do nothing. That's what it's very Italian thing to do. It's close to what Dutch says Nixon, right? So when your productivity goes to zero, so in a way Dutch and Italians are quite close to each other. Laziness is a creative state of mind. You can't have art without laziness, and laziness is only saving energy for the future, for me. So this is Bertrand Russell. He wrote a book in praise of idleness. So and he said, immense harm is caused by the belief that work is virtuous. So work less, enjoy more. I urge you to get out of here, look at clouds, enjoy, whoa, whoa. Enjoy life and have fun.
Thank you. All right. I love that at the end of the Ignites. So, quick story. Yesterday I had to set up my computer for Ignites real quick. And I forgot to hit the little option that's called loop forward back to the beginning of the slides. But then I forgot that my screensaver turns on after 5 minutes. So at the end of your Ignites, you're just going to constantly see Apple TV screensavers. And that's when you know it's over. So getting out of your deck is like the most hard thing to do. No. There we go. Okay, so so yesterday, as we did the first Ignites, I got stopped by an individual in basically on the stairs. He would not let me go on. And he asked me if he could do an Ignite as well. And I said, sure, if you can, you heard me how Ignites were hard. If you manage to cobble together 20 slides and you feel it comfortable, then by all means. And today at lunch, he said, yes, he's ready to go on. And he built 20 slides. So, I don't know. Did I say your name right? Let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, can I have a glass of water?
Sure.
Sorry, this is going to be a live failure because I was not prepared for this.
But he chose to do this, by the way. All right, 1, 2.
So I'm here to talk about progressive improvements, but more about like how you can have a fast workflow and with failure included in them. It's a recurring topic that I find in multiple talks recently. We start with accountability because we rely on responsibility of the individual and professionality. But we often don't ask them how they fail, how they recover. We only ask them the success stories. This is an example of a cruise. It's a very big boat. It's a very famous story. And actually, where it ends on accountability of the kip. But it's very strange that you rely this big machine on workflow and human errors. The outcome was that there are 10 rules for improve the crew communication in training. It's a bit absurd, to me at least. And another example is, recently, for instance, Boeing was involved in another crash, and this is a statement from 2015, where they say that the 80% of all crashes are basically hardware-related. Or human-related, not hardware-related. But that's a bit strange, because humans are so predictable in failures, so why machine that human builds are considered so perfect? Where does this come from? So I want to break this down, and I want to tell you that perfection is the killer of any good. This doesn't gonna sound any nuance. You might have already heard about it, but this is the perspective that you need to take in order to change your culture. So something that is going on DevOps is we try to build systems that are fault tolerant, right? But actually, our organization is not fault tolerant. So we try to embed this, and actually we end up to have different strategies. We try to get heroes and not talents. We don't grow up talents. We want experts. We want to have those people, right, in our stage that do the best of it. We don't remove complexity. We accept complexity as something that we are proud to show, right? So look how my CLI shows so many logs. Look how my Kubernetes is so complex to debug. Over time, we talk about security, and we talk about security as a barrier, right? Why do you need that permission? What do you have to do? And actually, you should just look through intentions. You should think small, you should think iterative. I recommend not to do per request. I recommend to do pair programming, to look to the intentions, and put a lot of tests in place. So it's the pipeline telling you when something goes wrong. And also, I would like to make system easy to debug, to have juniors understand better, to have a scope that are very small, to have accessibility on those complexity. And don't look to who, don't look to why, look to the failures, because failures are actually a resource on the prevention. Your business cannot die out of one failure. So if you just design a system that relies on failures, you are ready for any catastrophes. You are ready to recover very fast. So that's why where I want you to be focused on. Focus on your retrospective, make it them fun, make it something proud that you fail. Make it something, oh, I didn't know that like I need a connection pool for my SQL database before I lock all my tables. Make it very easy, let's say, for juniors to jump in, to experiment. Don't block them because they don't know enough, for instance, right? That's a very silly thing to do. And also, allow yourself first to fail. Be proud of it. I'm always proud. I'm here to fail in front of you. And be humble, because humble it means also be noble. And focus on the outcome, because math teaches you one thing, that there is not the solution, there is a solution. All right? The same problem can be like split in multiple chunks, and you can take one that delivers the best outcome. So remember to celebrate your failures, and because that's how you learn how to recover. And I do believe that this was the last slide. Sorry.
All right, who are we going to do next? Michael, are you up nearby? Where? There you are.
Thank you. Hello. So I want to give you some tactics, some advice about how to work well in your big company, or a small company if you work in a terrible one. And you know, I think a good basis of thinking of large companies is always using lots of corporate clip art. So especially if you're at a Devopsdays, you hear all sorts of great things about how to work in a nice company, where you play games and wear weird shoes, have lots of ways of making coffee, and dogs under the desk. There's always bearded people and post-it notes. That's kind of like the end goal you have. But let's look over there at the other side, the well-named pathological and bureaucratic organizations, where many people work. I'm sure no one here, but maybe your friends who work in a not-so-great environment, and kind of see how you can survive in that organization and even thrive. So first of all, I work at Pivotal. Nothing I'm about to say applies to Pivotal. Pivotal's great. We know how to like write on glass in reverse, which is a good skill. We point at things, like we have big open areas, you know. I guess you could come to our table, but I'm probably going to leave after this. So, you know, the mindset you want to have is not all the good DevOpsy stuff, but you're going into a toxic environment where you've got to defend yourself. And when you do that, you need to narrow down to what you're going to extract from it. Be pathological in your own way. And so one of the first things that you're going to be told in an organization like this is how you're measured, your OKRs or your PKIs or I don't even know what. And only focus on those. That's all anyone cares about is you deliver on those gauges. Don't try to be helpful and come up with new things. Now along that journey, people are going to tell you you should get a mentor, which sounds great, but really what you want is a champion, which is someone who will fight for you and help you get what you want. So get a mentor to tell you how to do things, but really cultivate people who will be on your side and will be allies. Now also in your journey, people are going to ask you to do extra work that doesn't affect your gauges. What you can do to them is assign them homework. Say, oh, could you do some more research for me? Tell me what your goals are. That's a great way to shut down a conversation. But basically assign homework as a way to filtering it. Now the other side of this is if you start to get fun ideas, people are going to assign homework to you. So don't have new ideas. And don't suggest new ways you should improve things, because that's just more work for you that does not affect your measurements, right? So beware of the homework trap. Now, Now, if you're trying to be a good little boy or girl or whatever you want to, categorize yourself as, if you actually want to innovate, you're going to have to like hide out somewhere, go away from the main organization, and basically have your classic skunk words thing. But that's really the only way you're going to improve things in a caustic organization. Now, let's talk about your reward. First of all, always be focused on relaxing, as we saw earlier. Like whatever you think you should be doing, maximize not working, right? Because that's part of your overall compensation is to relax and stare at clouds. Also, you'll probably notice, and this is especially for the younger people, you're going to get your salary, but there's all these other things like gym memberships and like matching things and all sorts of stuff like that. Make sure you get all of those, because that's part of your overhead and how you're being compensated. So if you don't get those, you're ripping yourself off. Now let's get to the core of what people don't like, and that is PowerPoint. You're not going to use Keynote. Don't worry about that. Or some kind of like YAML thing that generates slides. You're going to need to know how to use PowerPoint and how to use it effectively in an environment like this. First of all, ignore everything you've ever learned. This is all you need to know, that a PowerPoint slide is a document accidentally printed in landscape. So think about having lots of text, lots of charts. These are documents that will be emailed around, and they're very important to know that. Now, there's all sorts of tips, but the number one thing I would say is use what they call a McKinsey title, which is the title of your slide should be what you want someone to think looking at it. Not a summary, not a statement. It's exactly how you want them to interpret what's on there and exactly what you want. However, all this work, always assume you'll never get past slide one. Not the executive summary slide, but the cover slide. I've been in many, many meetings where you never get past slide one, so you verbally have to go over this stuff and don't rely on the slides. The slides will be emailed around and they're a good artifact. Now, related to that, in a meeting or in the hallway or whatever, always think about, I have something I want to do, and if I could ask someone for anything, ask them, I should say, what would that ask be? So always be ready to ask for something. You don't want to be caught flat on your foot when you run into the CEO and you don't have anything to ask from them, right? Now, you might want to quit at some point, but you need to be very systematic, and here's a suggestion of how you go through it. I mean, it's worth repeating, but always have a new job lined up if you're going to quit. But you should systematically think about, should I be quitting at this point, or do I like my free gym membership, right? Like kind of walking through it. Now, there's a few other references you can look at, including more I've written, but these two books in particular are really great at describing real, not DevOps-friendly organizations and how they work. And then I've got a couple of things that are a little more optimistic. One of them's not, as the title might imply, but they kind of go more in depth in the actual machinations of how organizations tend to work and trying to improve them as well. And it'll be exciting to see what kind of screenshot thing comes up. Let's see. Oh, yes. Look at that.
It is on random after all. Go. All right, up next is Noam Tennis. Stop for go. Yep. Here you go. One, two.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. My talk is going to be much less inspirational and way more superficial. Okay. So this is a Go library that I've developed inspired by a DevOps friend of mine. I also do DevOps, but at my day job, I'm a backend developer. Before you boo me off stage, I also do DevOps. I work at Fanmoth Bicycles, if you've heard of them. Amazing company, Twitter account, GitHub. You can find whatever I'm doing. So I'm guessing that most of you have done Kubernetes or are actively doing Kubernetes somewhere in the system. So I'm not going to do an embarrassing show of hands of who doesn't use Kubernetes yet. And I'm not going to do that to you. But I am going to talk about Kubernetes kill. And this is the first screenshot, or maybe a clip art, or whatever you want to call a stock photo, of searching for the word kill or murder in Google. I personally think it's hilarious because I don't know what it's related to. But when we talk about kill in the context of Kubernetes, we all know what it means. We have a pod. That pod has like a life cycle, which sometimes it will come to an end to. You never know when or where. It's like very mysterious. I'll kill you sometimes. But we do have pre-stop hooks. And if you're familiar with Kubernetes, you know that these things are not going to tell you, well, how or where, but they're going to tell you when, or at least right before. So it's like, don't murder me, but you have 1 minute to react to that. And so you have a few kind of pre-stop hooks. First off, you have the HTTP type pre-stop hook. And that one is when your service can be called through HTTP right before it's being shut down. You choose a port, you choose a URL, and it's going to be called. Second type is an actual bash command. So you have maybe a command or an executable on your disk or on your image or whatever you use, and this is going to be called right before you killed, so you can do some stuff before you killed. It's like a lot of products, it's like very bare bones. It's like you have building blocks which you can use, but it's not very convenient. And for my friend, I developed this library. I called it stop, and I written it in Go, and handles multiple scenarios of stopping. So the first and the classic stop is the signal, which is what happens by default when you do not define a stop hook in Kubernetes. You get an always signal, and this is the first option of you to handle that stop signal which you receive. I think it's normally like a -3 or -2. Someone can probably correct me here. But if you're familiar with the Go, then my library allows you to receive that signal over a channel and then handle it. Or if you don't want to mess around with channels because channels are difficult and weird and who uses them, then you can write callbacks if you're familiar with JavaScript and the likes. You have 2 callbacks, one for when you receive the signal, how would you want to shut down, and the other, well, for when a panic occurs. And also, well, you can handle the HTTP. Like we said, there's an HTTP hook. And those HTTP hooks can be registered on any HTTP server implementation which you might have in your Go application. So the first thing is you already have your HTTP server, you're running it, you can control what access to that is. And so you just want to register one handle. And that handle will handle the shutdown. So using a stop dot on HTTP code, you can handle that handler on your existing server. But again, if you want to run a mini server and not use your existing server, you can use that as well. So this function, the onHTTP server call, kind of starts a mini server in the background. You don't have to handle it. All you know that it accepts hooks. And finally, if you have like a super elaborate and super long shutdown system where you have to do loads of cleanups and it's very, very difficult, you have the custom hook which I've developed, which is a command, but it's an extended command. Basically what happens is that you start an app, it listens to a file, whether that file exists or not. Then, once you want to shut down the process, well, I have a special command which writes a file, creates a signal to stop. Your process listens for that signal, it finds it, it creates all the cleanup it has to do, and it signals back. It's like a two-way communication. If you have like maybe a socket file on Unix, it's like a two-way socket file for you. So you have like the command part, which sends a stop signal, and you can call it Kubernetes, and you have the library, which listens to that signal, creates a shutdown, cleans everything up, and then signals back, like I said, two-way communication, that everything is good. And you can just use that with Kubernetes using the command pre-stop hook, just call the stop command, and it cleans everything up. And I think that was it. I didn't expect it to be automated, so I have like a question slide. And no, it's cut off. Yay, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes. All right, and last but not least is John. If I can get out of my own screensaver, eventually. No? There we go. Dankjewel. Yeah, okay. Wow.
3 years since I've been on the stage.
Yeah, I know. How's it feel?
Last time was a big Lebowski thing going on.
Yeah. The robes aren't here this year.
All right, it's ready to go. Hey, John Willis, Botchgaloop, look me up. I've done a lot of shit. I've been asked, I spoke the first 3 ones here. I've been asked, like, what have you been up to since I've been here? So this is what I've been up to. So I'm going to tell you. So first off, DevOps, right? Like, million definitions. This is my definition. Like it or not, I don't give a shit. DevOps is a set of human practices that turn human capital into high-performance organizational capital. That's it. It's about humans, folks. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into this. Here's the thing I learned. Over the last 2 years, I've changed my whole thought process. You cannot lean Agile, Safe, DevOps, SRE, or ITIL out of a bad organizational culture. So basically, what I've been doing now is doing this thing I call organizational forensics. Basically, I go in and I don't use those words, because those words get in my way. And so I just basically ask questions to hundreds and hundreds of people and do flip charts. No laptops, and I report to a CIO. And I just ask these questions in these 7 patterns. I call them 7 deadly diseases. We'll go through all of them. The beauty is they accidentally, for me, fell into something called security and compliance theater. And you can see what happens at the bottom part of the funnel. And what I do is I'm able to show that basically everything you do from an audit perspective is bullshit. So the first thing I do is I talk to all the executives, the leadership, and I ask them this quick thing. It's a Rorschach Test. Basically, what are the 5 things your company should be doing and you're not doing? And it catches them off guard, and like they don't, like, oh my God, I can't believe I told you that. And then they aggregate that. Now I know how to start. So the first deadly disease is most companies, these large bank insurance companies, only capture about 30% of everything that goes on. All right, so do we stop now? I mean, no record of 70% that goes on in that industry, and they're trying to automate stuff. And so what happens here? You can't see the dependencies list, all the books written about DevOps. You can't see any of that because it's all hidden, because 70% of it is missing, and there is no electronic record of it. Right? Workarounds. And the second is you got like 10 or 12 different systems to capture the 30% that you catch. You have SharePoint, you have Jira, you have Remedy, you have homegrown systems, you have emails, and all those have different context. So and I'm talking about the 30%. And so you cannot ever get an end-to-end systems view. You have inconsistent environments, and you have incredibly too many tools, and I'm not even talking about how many ways you do CI/CD, right? I'm just talking now about the ticketing systems, right? So this is a form of toil. Misalignment incentives, right? This is another area, and it's one thing to top down and be, misalignment incentive. It's another thing to talk to 200 developers and infrastructure people and to get their view of misalignment. Because what you hear there is the glory, dirty leadership, how they know they're not trusted. And I create a quote wall. This is so beautiful. When I go back to the CIO, I was like, John, I'm not sure that's true. Like, all right, let me pull out the note. Here's the fucking quote, right? And these are the things that the hundreds of people who do the work tell me, right? And then the fourth is, how many people read the Phoenix Project, right? Quickly, some. Brent, right? The bottlenecks. These people that basically do everything and everything aggregates. When you're doing the flip charts, you start circling them. And you start seeing who they are. And then you know that these are uncaptured, non-visualized bottleneck work that is not institutionalized. It's tribal. And so you have all this unknown visualization. You cannot see it. You can't capture the capacity in the waste. Lean waste, by the way, it's a thing. And actually, toil and lean are basically similar. The incongruent organization. Everybody talks about microservices and Conway's Law, right? And that's the thing. I look at Conway's Law in terms of organizational design for how you do audit, how you do incident, how you structure and think in a Conway structure. If you don't know Conway, you got to look it up. But basically, one of the things we talk about is T-shape, I-shape, T-shape, E-shape. Right? I-shape is like I'm an Oracle DBA. T is I can do some other things. E is I've got like lots of different skills. Right? That's where we want to get to, and I have to identify this. All right, here's the second to last worst. We live with complex adaptive systems. Sorry, folks, these are not deterministic. They are complex, and you better embrace and open up to complex system thinking. So therefore, root cause analysis is a myth. Stop it. Stop doing it. It's wrong. Psychological safety is right. Pluralistic ignorance is an interesting cognitive bias. Look up Abraham Wald. I've done a longer version of this. And final but last, everything funnels into what I call security compliance theater. Basically, sort of DevOps, SecOps. And this is the thing where I'm able to funnel all these things. Again, this is an hour presentation I'm doing in 5 minutes. Basically, I find things like you have 7 different ARBs. The architecture review, or the product review, the CAB. I see it in XML review board once. Checkbox, order to work lounge, vulnerability theater, signal noise ratio. We suck. I don't care what product you have. Anyway, thank you very much.